Man. Hell of a job coming up here. Battling everything you've been through, we did a hell of a job finishing off the game, okay? You guys fought to the very end, didn't waver. It was time to punch it in. We punched it in, and then we held them from going back down the field. Give yourselves a hand. I'm telling you, communication, guys. That's all it takes, communication. We got a short week, right? We're off tomorrow. We'll come in on Tuesday, but we're going to enjoy this plane ride home.
Remember this feeling, y'all.
Yes, sir.
Remember this. Let's go,
yes, sir.
Let's go, B. And the home
of the Jets.
Welcome to Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM. Olivia, Landis, and Eric Allen live here from the Atlantic Health Jets Training Center. And we just saw head coach Todd Bowles post-victory over the Buffalo Bills this past Sunday. EA, you were able to be inside that locker room. It must have been a good feeling and a good vibe from the guys.
It was a joyous one, Liv. After 6 consecutive losses, this team wanted to taste victory again so bad, and in the manner they did it was very impressive because Buffalo took command early in the game, but the Jets kept on fighting, and then of course late they end up with the victory. Sam Darnold takes over, leads a 2-minute drive. Ultimately that culminates on a 4th and 1, a 1-yard scoring plunge from Eli McGuire, and then the defense gets a hold. It's a long time in the making for this team. They've come close a number of times, and you know the National Football League is not about moral victories, and you know that, but these guys put a lot of work into it. They take a lot of professional pride and meant a lot to them, especially considering what the Buffalo Bills did to them in Week 10 at MetLife Stadium.
Well, exciting news for the Jets. They avoided the sweep when they played the Buffalo Bills this past Sunday in Buffalo, and they also snapped a 6-game losing streak, and it was also the first AFC East win for the Jets. So really exciting news for them to be able to snag that first AFC East victory. And not only that, snapping that 6-game losing streak had to have felt good for those players. So how big of a, I guess, turning point was this win at this point in the season for the Jets?
Well, I don't know how much of a turning point it is. All I can say is that a lot of people in the National Football League look at the season in terms of quarters. And this was the start of the final quarter. And a lot of guys inside the locker room today were talking about, hey, these final 3 games now matter a lot to us. And they want to finish off the season on a high note. And maybe you can start to build some good things here down the stretch. And specifically, if you were a fan, the number one thing you wanted to see was Sam Darnold back on the field. And you got a scare there early in the game when he goes out on the 3rd play. But fortunately, he just missed one series, came back and played well, especially down the stretch. Invaluable experience for Darnold with what he did in a late game situation.
Well, a bright spot for this Jets team on this past Sunday when they played the Buffalo Bills were special teams yet again. This has been a consistent bright spot for the Jets the entire season. Andre Roberts had 2 big kickoff returns, a 51-yard kickoff return and an 86-yard kickoff return. And we can't forget kicker Jason Myers, who went 2 for 2 this past Sunday.
Jason Myers, 28 of 30 on the season, and we know he's set the NFL record already in terms of 55-yard kicks in a single season. He's got 5 of those. He's done everything for this team this year. 49 touchbacks is a franchise record, and we're only 13 games into this season. Considering he was claimed off of waivers from the Seattle Seahawks on August 21st. Unbelievable. What a strong leg, but also how consistent he has been all over the field. No kicker in the National Football League has had a better season than Myers this year.
So why has their performance as a special teams unit been so crucial this year?
Well, I think you got to point to a couple things for the special team success. Number one is they're getting coached up very well by Brant Boyer. And the other thing is they've been consistent all units because special teams is just not kicking. It's just not returns with Andre Roberts. It's coverage. It's also the blocks that this team has done over the last couple weeks. Over the last 2 weeks, they've got 3 blocks. Every time the special teams comes on the field, if you're a Jets fan, you're thinking something positive is going to happen. Maybe Andre Roberts is going to spring a return. And Roberts is a guy who now has 8 returns of more than 40 yards this season, I believe. It might even be 50 yards. And no other NFL player has that. The closest competitor has 3. This guy is a threat to take it the distance all the time. And in the National Football League, when the margin between winning and losing is very thin, field position is huge. And Andre Roberts always is putting you in a good spot.
2 extremely Pro Bowl worthy players right there, Andre Roberts and Jason Myers. In fact, they both spoke to the media today, and they talked about the possibility of kicker Jason Myers making the Pro Bowl.
It's pretty special. I mean, what he's doing, I mean, nobody thought he was going to do that when he came here. But being released by a couple teams, coming here and showing out, you know, most people from the outside don't understand the weather that he's had to kick in. And, you know, that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but he's a Pro Bowl kicker in everybody's mind here, and I hope it is for everybody outside this building.
It would be an honor and it'd be great to go to the Pro Bowl, but, you know, I don't need a Pro Bowl selection to kind of, you know, tell me I had a good year. You know, I know I'm having a good year, and so I'll be proud of that no matter what.
Oh, the always very humble kicker Jason Myers. You heard him right there talking about it's more about the team, and I know I'm confident in my performance this year, so he doesn't necessarily need that Pro Bowl to validate it. But nonetheless, 2 days left to vote for these players. You know, you can go to NFL.com. There's a Pro Bowl voting tab, or you can go to NFL.com/Pro Bowl. You know, place in your votes for Andre Roberts, kicker Jason Myers, and we'll talk about him a little bit later in the show, but Jamal Adams as well. So good to hear from those two. But now let's move on to Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson, 2 names that really stuck out to everybody this past Sunday. You know, Robbie Anderson, 4 catches for 76 yards and 1 touchdown. This is the connection that people have been wanting to see from these 2 all year.
Yeah, you're right about that, Liv, and the chemistry continues to grow between these 2 guys, and I talked to Robbie Anderson about that last night on Inside the Jets. He says the trust factor between the rookie quarterback and himself is getting better, and they're getting more familiar with each other, and that just comes with reps, and that just comes with being on the field. But Robbie Anderson, a tremendous vertical threat on that final Jets drive, the game-winning drive. Darnold threw a beautiful ball down the sideline to Robbie Anderson for a 37-yard gain. And then earlier in that 4th quarter, what a play by Darnold, scrambling, avoiding Kyle Williams, spinning around, coming all the way across the field, keeping his eyes down the field, and Robbie Anderson shook free from Tre'Davious White for a 7-yard score. And they had a couple other connections during that game. Like you said, 4 receptions, 76 yards, and critical plays at critical times. So let's watch how these guys continue to develop over the final 3 games.
With this chemistry continuing to grow, what can this chemistry overall do for the offense?
Well, listen, Robbie Anderson is a big play waiting to happen. At any time, Robbie Anderson can get 40 yards, 50 yards. He can get you chunk plays. And for an offense, that is critical because you can't score if you're just going 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. You need chunk plays. And for Darnold, it gives him an outlet when Robbie Anderson is down the field one-on-one. He's got great hands, and he also runs good routes, especially down the field. Great line he took against Tre'Davious White, who is one of the NFL's top cornerbacks. So, listen, I would imagine, I think over what we're going to see over the next 3 games is you're going to continue to hear Darnold to Anderson.
I think it's also worth noting that Sam Darnold had a big game this past Sunday against the Bills, but he had that big 2-minute comeback in the fourth quarter. It was Sam Darnold's first professional fourth quarter comeback, and as Jamal Adams has noted, he is clutch. He's clutch when he needs to be, and we saw that on the field this past Sunday.
Well, yeah, you got the ball with the Jets trailing 23-20. There was 2:30 on the clock, and he marched them right down the field in that key play. Of course, was a 37-yarder to Anderson, but he also had a design quarterback run that Jeremy Bates dialed up on third down that got the Jets to the 1-yard line, and then on fourth down, Eli McGuire was able to punch it in. But when you lead your team on a drive like that, that is going to inspire confidence inside the room that the next time Sam Darnold is in a situation like that, that the Jets know they have a chance because this guy is cool and calm in the clutch. And like he said, I got a bad short-term memory, which plays to his advantage because he made a critical mistake there in the third quarter with an interception when he's looking for Chris Herndon. But he came right back, led the Jets down the field on a game-tying touchdown, and then when Josh Allen countered with a field goal to make it 23-20, Sam Darnold took over and got the Jets into the end zone. It was a great display, and that's exactly what you want to see from the rookie quarterback who had an opportunity to take a step back. He missed 3 games of action with the strained foot, had that injury scare early against the Bills, went in for x-rays, came out, was ready to go. Very exciting. Today he talked about Liv in the locker room. Consistency, though. That's the key for him. That's something that he's been echoing throughout his rookie season, that I just have to continue to be consistent. I have to get the guys out of the huddle, get them up to the line, be quick with my progressions and my reads, and then let it rip. And he sure did on Sunday.
EA, earlier in the show you mentioned Inside the Jets, and Robbie Anderson joined you this past Monday, and he talked about building that chemistry with Sam Darnold.
I think it's growing, Took a little time, both of us we were both missed a little bit of a couple games, but I definitely think our connection is growing a lot. So got to finish out these next 3 weeks, and, the future's bright, hopefully.
How different is maybe the trajectory of the ball, especially on a long ball, the way Sam throws it compared to maybe the way Josh McCown is throwing it?
Yeah, it's a little different. At first it was had to adjust to it a little bit, but I'm getting used to it now.
Wide receiver Robbie Anderson speaking on the chemistry that is going to continue to grow, especially in the next 3 weeks with quarterback Sam Darnold. Now let's move to the other side of the ball, defense. The Jets had 3 total takeaways against the Bills and 4 takeaways within the past 2 games. Now, before these past 2 games, they went 5 straight without takeaways. Now, it's no secret that the team that wins the takeaway battle oftentimes gives themselves a better chance to win the game overall. One notable player that we have to mention is cornerback Trumaine Johnson, who had 2 total interceptions against the Bills this past Sunday.
Yeah, he sealed the game against the Bills because when Josh Allen got the ball back after Sam Darnold led that touchdown drive late, Trumaine Johnson stepped in front of a pass. He read that route, and he put that one on ice. He also had an interception earlier in the game when Allen got a little greedy, was flushed out of the pocket, threw one up there, and Trumaine Johnson came up with the ball. But good cornerbacks, good players seem to find the ball, and that's what's happening with Trumaine Johnson right now. He has 3 interceptions over the course of the last 2 games, like you mentioned, Liv. He was hampered by that quad injury earlier in the season, but I think we're seeing what Trumaine Johnson can do now at full strength.
Well, coaches have stressed the next man up mentality, and we've actually seen that a lot on this defense. For example, Darren Lee, who is suspended for the final 4 games of the season, now the remaining 3, was actually the next man up is Neville Hewitt, and he had a solid game against the Buffalo Bills.
He played very well. Neville Hewitt, a former Miami Dolphin, he was in a 4-3 system with the Dolphins, playing a 3-4 inside linebacker spot next to Avery Williamson. He tied for the defense's lead with 8 tackles. He also had a half a sack. I thought he played with a lot of passion, Liv. He was a guy who found the ball, played with a great motor. Very impressed by the way he stepped up in place of Darren Lee. And then we should mention Kevin Pierre-Louis as well, because KPL has been a consistent player on special teams, but he's going to get some more reps on defense here as we go forward, too, in place of maybe subbing sometimes out for a guy like Neville Hewitt, because you'll have to see, we'll have to continue to monitor how the Jets operate an inside linebacker without the aforementioned Darren Lee.
Another player that we've talked about in the show's past is Darryl Roberts. You know, took that place at safety next to Jamal Adams after Marcus May was put on injured reserve. And he is someone that even Coach Denard Wilson has talked about. He is a hard worker, and I love the way he puts in the work, and that's showing on the field now.
I'm very impressed with Darryl Roberts. You know why? Because we're not talking about the ball going over the Jets' heads. Because the safety is the last line of defense, and oftentimes you're going to use the heat-seeking missile, who is Jamal Adams, going forward and disrupting plays in the offensive backfield. Well, Darryl Roberts provides a lot of speed back there. He's also rangy, and Josh Allen, can throw the ball out of the stadium. He's got an arm that has no limits, and the Jets did not have the ball go over their heads. You got to credit Darryl Roberts doing what he is doing at the safety position, because here's a guy who's lined up cornerback for the duration of his career, and the Jets have moved him there, and he's played well.
Up next for the Jets are the Texans this Saturday, and Coach Todd Bowles addressed the media today and evaluated the Texans and talked about quarterback Deshaun Watson.
Very talented, both sides of the ball, obviously. You know about the quarterback, you know about the receiver, you know, both receivers, actually. Lamar Miller's having a great season. A big up front on the offensive line, defensively. With the Clowney and Watt, you know about, but Merciless and the two inside backers. Obviously, the secondary plays very well, so they're a very talented team.
Tom, what is it about Watson that makes him a challenge to defend?
Well, he can beat you in the pocket and out of the pocket. He's a gamer. You know, you speed him up, he's going to hurt you with his legs, and he can hurt you running out of the pocket. If you don't speed him up, he's going to sit in the pocket and throw dimes on you.
And Coach Todd Bowles obviously looking forward to the Houston Texans this Saturday, which will be at 4:30 kickoff time at MetLife Stadium. Now, this, with Sam Darnold and the Jets facing off against the Texans, this will be the third rookie quarterback that the Texans have faced in this 2018 season. And so far, they are 2-0 against the rookie quarterbacks, which would be Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. So the Texans haven't come out to MetLife Stadium since 2012. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see them coming into MetLife Stadium and how the Jets handle this team.
Texans playing a dome, Liv, as you know, Reliance Stadium there in Houston. And Saturday, the forecast, I took a peek, calling for rain. So, you know, they better bring their ponchos here.
Well, Bill O'Brien addressed that, actually. He talked about, you know, the East Coast weather. We're a little bit nervous about it.
Right. So
it's warmer in Texas.
Did he say they're nervous about it?
No, he said, you know, we have to be mindful of the weather. East Coast game in December. It's not necessarily exactly where you want to be.
Well, yeah, and the Jets offense is going to be facing a Titans defense that includes J.J. Watt, who you could make the argument that he's the most dominant defender in the National Football League. I know Aaron Donald, you could also make the argument for a guy like him. Khalil Mack has had a tremendous year himself with the Chicago Bears. But Watt brings it on every play. Jadeveon Clowney, he's a freak. He's got a lot of explosion as far as pass rushers concerned. They also got a guy like Whitney Merciless. They have a lot of guys who can disrupt what you're doing. So the Jets are going to have to really protect Sam Darnold this week, and he's going to have to make good decisions when to step up in the pocket and also maybe when to use his legs.
Yeah, head coach Todd Bowles earlier when we just watched him on the screen was talking about how Deshaun Watson is an extremely mobile quarterback, much like Josh Allen, who they faced last week. So knowing that turnovers are going to be key in this game, the Texans have had 6 games this season where they didn't give up any turnovers. So how can the Jets defense put pressure on Deshaun Watson?
I actually thought the Jets brought a lot of pressure against Josh Allen. They finished with 3 sacks. They were in his face a bunch of times. I'm sure Josh Allen had a lot of black and blue marks on his body after that game. So I thought they won the battle in the trenches against the Buffalo Bills, and that didn't happen again in Week 10. And all the guys to a man, that's why they were taking it so personal, is they thought they got physically beaten by the Bills in Week 10. Well, I thought it was a different story in Orchard Park. So what you want to do against Deshaun Watson is he is a dual-threat quarterback, so he can beat you from the pocket, but he also can beat you with his legs. You got to maintain your rush integrity, and you can't let him escape because he is dangerous as a runner as well. But he has weapons offensively. You think about who's on the outside. DeAndre Hopkins, you can make the argument that he's been the most impressive receiver in football this year. Demaryius Thomas, the former Denver Bronco, a big guy. He gives them a big target. And Lamar Miller's rushing the ball very well. So this is going to be a great challenge for the Jets defense, but I think they'll be up for it. Like I said, and we've been talking about, that the turnovers are there. And for me, what is encouraging about the Jets, what we saw last week, that is the recipe for victory for this team. Great special teams, opportunistic defense, and timely plays on offense.
We will actually be joined by Ethan Greenberg on Practice Today, presented by SiriusXM, this coming Thursday, not Friday. It will be this Thursday due to the short week. And they'll talk a little bit more in depth about this Texans face-off with the Jets this Saturday, short week, this Saturday at MetLife Stadium at 4:30. But that's all that we have for you on tonight's show. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great night.